Matt DiBenedetto is out early at Rackley War Racing. Aric Almirola will likely retire at the end of 2023, and the 2024 schedule continues to be delayed by a few extra weeks. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to the video. We got some NASCAR Motorsports story discussed here today through the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to have by starting to talk about Worldwide Express. As it was announced this morning that Worldwide Express will be returning to sponsor Trackhouse Racing in 2024, and they will sponsor Washington and Dino Sports for a number of races in 2024. I would also expect that Shane Van Gisbergen, who makes select starts of the team, will probably also get sponsored by Worldwide Express as well. Worldwide Express has been a sponsor of Trackhouse Racing since the 2022 season, so it's really good to see a company like Worldwide Express been working with Trackhouse and also Nice Motorsports as well, with Carson Hocevar, who could be going to Spire next year in 2024. I think it's really cool to see that they're going to be sponsoring the Trackhouse guys. Awesome seeing them returning to Trackhouse Racing in 2024. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Jelly Roll. As it was announced a couple days ago, the Jelly Roll will give the command at Texas Motor Speedway. Jelly Roll, for those who don't know, is one of the biggest artists currently in the moment in the country scene. He's also had a couple big hits that have hit the mainstream. Jelly Roll music I really like, and it's really cool to see he's going to give the command. He's going to bring a lot of energy. He's been one of the biggest, hottest rising stars in the country scene currently at the moment, and nonetheless, I think he'll do a really awesome and a great command. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Texas purse money. So every time we have a NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series race, Bob Pockets puts out the purse money for those said races. And according to Bob Pockets for the Cup race, it's $8,955,060. And for the Xfinity race, it's $1,377,593. Some decent purse money for this weekend. Obviously, Texas tends to bring in a lot more purse money because of the fact that usually they have a lot of crowds. Though I will say the crowds have been dwindling, but that's some pretty good money for this weekend. Obviously, all the Cup teams are going to get a lot more money because of bigger charter money and such. Nonetheless, it's cool to see that they will get quite a bit of that money. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Asterix. As it was announced, I believe, on Tuesday that the Asterix is going to be coming to iRacing in 2024. This has been rumored for a little bit. This potentially could end up happening. A lot of people have been wanting the Asterix to come to iRacing, but I think it's really cool to see that a newest series that's only been around for a few years is going to get the opportunity chance to join the iRacing scene. Michael Carey put out a tweet saying this is the biggest, I think he said this is the biggest day of his life in this tweet, which I think this is really huge. And the photo that they show with all the people saying how excited they were about the Asterix coming to iRacing, I think is really huge. We've seen the Asterix grow at times this year. Hopefully it continue to grow, but it's really awesome and cool to see that the Asterix is going to be coming to iRacing in 2024. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Alex Albon. It's been reported by Marshall Pruitt from Racer Magazine and other media outlets that he is rumored to be running the 2024 Rolex 24 with Wayne Taylor Racing. Remember, earlier in the week on Monday, I talked about there were some rumors circulating about a potential driver in Formula 1 who's been doing pretty good in Formula 1, getting an opportunity and a chance. Now, Alex Albon has been doing a really good job with Williams this year. He scored a few races with points, and I think that he's someone who has surprised me in Formula 1 this season. And I think it's really cool to see that Alex Albon is likely going to be running the Rolex 24 in 2024, especially Wayne Taylor Racing. It's a really competitive team. They're expected to have 2 cars in next year's Rolex 24, and they're going to have a really stout lineup for both of those teams. You got Jordan Taylor returning to the team in 2024. Louis Delatraz is going to be part of that organization. And again, I think because they've also had other former Formula 1 drivers, like I believe Kumu Kobayashi drove for the team, and also Fernando Alonso is a former driver of this team as well at Wayne Taylor Racing. Nonetheless, it's really awesome, and more than likely he's going to be running the Rolex 24 with the team. I am really looking forward to this because I think it's really awesome. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Oscar Piastri. As it was officially announced a couple days ago that Oscar Piastri has signed a multi-year contract extension with McLaren through 2026. Oscar Piastri's contract had originally been up at the end of 2023, But I think this is a well-deserved extension for Oscar Piastri. He's actually been having a really solid rookie year for the standards of rookies. I think he's right up in the top 10 in the standings. He's had a few races where he's had a chance to score podiums. I think he's only scored one podium so far in his F1 career up to this point. But with how well McLaren has been performing, especially as of late in the second half of the year, there is potential for McLaren to only get better. We've seen Lando Norris do some great things with McLaren this year in 2023, and I think that he could win some races in 2024. He's come close to winning a couple times, finished runner-up this past weekend at Singapore, and I think we never know, he could win this weekend in Japan. Nonetheless, I think this is a well-deserved contract extension for Piastri. He's been kind of getting closer to being up front a lot more consistently, and I think Piastri in 2024 is going to continue to be able to prove that in the next season. So nonetheless, really excited about it and glad to see that Oscar Piastri will be back with McLaren long-term, at least for the next few years. It's good to see he's staying with the team. Happy to see he'll be returning with McLaren and be there for the next few years. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Riley Herbst. As there was reported by Austin Kensky from Motorsports Wire from US Today that he will be driving the 36 for Front Row Motorsports, that being Riley Herbst at Talladega Superspeedway. This will be the second start for Riley Herbst in that number 36 car, as he actually drove the 36 car at Daytona National Speedway a few weeks ago, and at times was pretty impressive, ran a front, especially at the end of stage number 1. Now, I will say, while Riley Herbst has not had a great year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, where unfortunately he ended up missing the playoffs, Riley Herbst is still getting really good opportunity here with Front Row. They're really good, especially on the super speedway tracks, and I think that you'll see him have a pretty solid run with the organization and the team. I'm looking forward to this for Riley. Again, it's cool to see he's bringing Monster Energy aboard, and I think he'll do a pretty good job. And maybe next year, Front Row wanted to expand a 3-car team. Riley could be the guy who could bring sponsorship funding, though they're going to more likely need a char if they want to expand to 3 full-time cars. But this could be a possibility down the road where we see him maybe in their truck, or maybe they move up to their Cup team in the future. Nonetheless, really exciting stuff, and glad to see that Riley Herbst will be driving the 36 for Front Row Motorsports at Talladega Superspeedway. And now we're going to jump on to the next story in today's episode as we're talking about the Bristol TV ratings. Let's be honest, these are not very good. So according to Austin Kensky and Adam Stern, the NASCAR Cup Series race at Bristol earned a 1.562 million viewers on USA. That is down 12% from 2022, which had 1.7 million viewers. These ratings are not very good. So what is causing the ratings to be down, especially for this weekend? Well, there could be a couple of potential reasons why. You've got the Chase Elliott effect. Chase Elliott, of course, is no longer in the playoffs in 2023. Didn't make the playoffs this year, but he's still in the Owner Points playoffs, but no one really cares about the Owner's Points playoffs. You've also got a lot of college football games were going on at that time, or a couple of really big ones especially, that were going on at that same time. But I will tell you one of the big reasons why I do believe the TV ratings are down very significantly. Short track racing does not get huge TV ratings. Over the years, it's been the lowest viewership when it comes to TV ratings. Road courses also don't bring the best viewership as well. Even when NASCAR was at its peak, like back in 2008, when the races were getting 5 to 6 million viewers, short track racing, like in Martinsville, only got 3.8 to 3.9 million viewers, which is not very good. So historically, short track racing has not had the greatest thing when it comes to TV viewership overall. And that's what I'm saying. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people think that there's not a chance of a track like Rockingham to come back. And also, it's the market that Bristol's in. They do market these races, definitely, but the market that it's in is not very profitable. It's not a huge market right now, in my opinion, and I think that's a huge, huge issue right now at this particular moment, that people in like small markets like Bristol, they're going out to the track. Their attendance for the race was really, really good. I think it almost sold out, as a matter of fact, but the big problem is, and I think another thing that probably hurt the ratings a little bit too, is the weather. There were some weather days that came into play, but I don't think it would have been a huge issue there. But I'm not surprised that, unfortunately, the ratings are down. It is disappointing. We haven't talked about ratings much recently, and a lot of them, unfortunately, last week's have been down. But sadly, unfortunately, the TV ratings were down for this race. And honestly, it was just very disappointing to see. But sadly, not a surprise. It was on a Saturday night, and also Saturday night races tend to not do as well. I mean, the Xfinity Series race, which had Dale Jr. running, by the way, only got like 300 to 400,000 less viewers than the NASCAR Cup Series race. So that's still everything you need to know. The Saturday night races aren't doing great. Maybe they can move the race a little earlier in the year, which certainly is possible, but I don't know if that is going to happen at this particular point. Nonetheless, it's really disappointing to see that the TV ratings are down, but sadly, I'm not shocked and surprised about it. And now we're going to jump on to the first of three major stories in today's episode as we're talking about the 2024 NASCAR schedule. So usually the NASCAR schedules are out by this point. However, we still have not seen a release of the 2024 NASCAR schedule. And Bob Pockrass earlier in the week had put out a tweet in regards to this answering question from the fans where someone asked, when is the 2024 NASCAR schedule going to come out? Well, Bob Pockrass said that he was hoping that the schedule would be out this week. However, he says it could be another 2 weeks and it might get delayed even farther. So the schedule may not end up being released until October. And there's a couple reasons why this could be a potential possibility. One of those, as mentioned recently, has been Texas Motor Speedway. There's been rumors circulating as of late that Texas Motor Speedway may move their date from the playoffs and may move it from the fall all the way to spring. And IndyCar may not host a race at Texas Motor Speedway in 2024. There's a great chance that IndyCar is headed back to the Milwaukee Mile, so while they may lose an oval, they might gain an oval, but man, the IndyCar race at Texas was very, very good. Another reason for the potential delays for the 2024 NASCAR schedule is Montreal. NASCAR has been rumored for the last few months since back in June that they are looking to maybe go to Montreal in 2024. But I think that was before the F1 schedule got released. And remember, they have it on June 12th. NASCAR actually wanted to have their race, from what I understand, on that same weekend on June 12th, but the F1 race is supposed to happen on June 12th in 2024. So that's something that's holding up the schedule a little bit as well, because because that is a rumored track that's going to take over for Auto Club in 2024. There's also a lot of chatter rumors about other possibilities. Sonoma has been rumored to potentially moving this spring in 2024. Watkins Glen, as of late, has been rumored maybe moving to the playoffs in 2024, and it's disappointing there. Here's what we know about the 2024 schedule at this point. The Clash got announced this week. It'll be on February 4th, and you have the NASCAR Mexico Series racing there as well. The season finale at Phoenix will be on November 4th in 2024. The Daytona 500 is going to be on February 18th. We know there's going to be 2 Bristol concrete days, so there's going to be no more Bristol dirt. And there's also, I believe it was also confirmed as well, another day that I can't remember exactly. There's also other tracks that are rumored. You've got North Wilkesboro being rumored to be on Easter in 2024. And there's a lot of rumors that have not been announced at this current moment. But here's what I want to say about the schedule not being released yet in 2024. To me, it is very unacceptable and ridiculous that we still do not have a schedule for 2024. Like I just mentioned a second ago, the 2024 NASCAR season technically starts on February 4th. It is September 22nd. We're not even 5 months away from the start of 2024. And a lot of people need to start planning for 2024 if they're going to go to race or not in the 2024 season. Well, if they don't make any announcements for 2024, you're going to have less attendance. And I think that this actually, in all seriousness, is going to hurt attendance for NASCAR in 2024. And that's not the only thing that needs to be talked about. The charter agreement has still also not been signed for 2024 yet. And Denny Hamlin went on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, and he said that there's only 3.5 months left. He said that earlier in the week, and they still have not finished the charter agreement yet. And then you've got the media rights deal. NASCAR stated earlier in the year that they wanted to have that media rights deal done and everything done by July or August. We're almost in October, and none of these things are even close to being done yet. And like I said, it is completely unacceptable that the schedule has not been released yet for 2024. There's of course, and there's other rumors like Indy's going to come back more than likely next year that hasn't been confirmed. But back to the whole point, I think it's unacceptable that the schedule's not been released yet for 2024. I do not like this move. I think it's a bad move on NASCAR's end. It's taken this long. Trust me, they're frustrated too about this, believe me. But I think it's unacceptable and inexcusable that we still do not have a schedule for 2024. And hopefully soon they are going to get a schedule release for 2024. Because I think it's unacceptable at this point. There's still no schedule release yet. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Aric Almirola. Now, there's been a lot of talk and chatter in the last few months around Aric Almirola. And one of the biggest chatter points in regards to Aric Almirola is the fact there's been a lot of rumors since the beginning of the year in 2023 that Aric Almirola may retire at the end of the 2023 season. Now, remember, last year Aric Almirola has signed a multi-year contract extension for 2023 and also 2024. But many industry experts do believe that Aric Almirola is likely going to retire at the end of 2023. And a decision is expected to be coming very, very soon. That decision is likely to be coming in the next few weeks, so it has not been announced yet, and more than likely sometime probably in October, we may hear something about Aric Almirola's future. Now, there is a chance that Aric Almirola could maybe perhaps return to SHR in 2024, but with all the rumors and chatter circulating, I personally think Aric Almirola is going to retire. Now, a lot of people are going to say that Aric Almirola is not done good with SHR, but here's something about Aric Almirola you need to understand. Stewart-Haas Racing's not been very good the last few years. When the team is actually good, Aric Almirola performed. Go back to 2018, where he made the round of 8. And also remember earlier this year, he had won at Sonoma Raceway. So while Aric Almirola isn't the greatest driver in the world, he is certainly not a bad race car driver. But with Aric Almirola more than likely retiring at the end of 2023, who's going to take the ride? Well, Ford, unfortunately, did lose Zane Smith. Zane Smith had been the original rumored driver that could take over that 10 car in 2024. Remember, it was announced earlier this week that Zane Smith is going to be going to Trackhouse Racing starting in 2024 and joining Spire Motorsports in the 2024 season. So he's off the table there. He'd been rumored for the 10 car, but that has gone away. There's also, it was one time they had a chance to maybe pick up a guy like Michael McDowell and Todd Gillen. They're both also returning to Farmer Motorsports in the 2024 season. So, what does Ford have left in regards to their future for that number 10 car? Well, there's a couple potential possibilities. The first one I mentioned is Cole Custer. Cole Custer is part of the Stewart-Haas Racing family. He actually drove in the Cup Series in a 41 car, which Ryan Preece is currently driving. He's been driving the Xfinity Series this year in 2023, and he has scored 2 wins, and he's actually in a really good position to go to the next round for the Xfinity Series playoffs. But we all remember how bad Cole Custer was in the Cup Series in that 41 car, and he really did not deliver there. But with him having family ties and not having to bring as much sponsorship and funding, I would imagine he could get a chance. Plus, his dad is executive and president of the team, so he would have a good chance of getting in that car next year. There's also Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst right now does not have a ride for 2024 currently at the moment. Were some rumors at one point he could go back to Joe Gibbs Racing next year, but I also could see him in the 10 car because he has Monster Energy backing and funding, which would be really supplement the team going forward. Look, I don't think Riley Herbst is the greatest driver in the world by any stretch of imagination. He's probably not deserving of an SHR ride by any stretch of imagination, but certainly there is a possibility of that happening as well. Then there's Hailie Deegan. That's another name I'll mention because Hailie Deegan does not have a ride yet for 2024. I don't think she's even close to being ready, but she could be someone they look at. She's got some sponsors with her, and maybe there's a chance she goes to the 10 car in 2024, though I will say I don't think Hailie Deegan ends up at SHR. I think Tony Stewart has denied those rumors recently, so she's probably not going to end up with Stewart-Haas Racing. But going back to Ford, they've kind of dropped the ball over the last few years. They have lost 3 potential possibilities of picking up drivers. The first one I mentioned, of course, I'll mention is Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson had a chance to go to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2021. Tony Stewart wanted Kyle Larson, and Ford said no to picking up Kyle Larson because, of course, what happened in 2020, and then, of course, Larson went to Hendrick Motorsports, and let's be honest, Kyle Larson made a great career choice going to Hendrick Motorsports. He's won nearly 20 races with Hendrick Motorsports, and he's gotten 22 career victories up to this point, and all but 6 of them have come at Hendrick Motorsports. Then there's Kyle Busch. Remember last year, Stewart-Haas Racing had been part of the Kyle Busch sweepstakes, but there had been some talk that maybe Kyle Busch should go to SHR in 2024, 23 I should say, considering Kurt Busch is driven for the team, and they had a lot of chance to get Kyle Busch, and they weren't able to get him. And now they've lost Zane Smith, who I think was their best chance to go for the future, but they lost Zane Smith. But there's also been a lot of chatter circulating that Stewart-Haas Racing could sell 2 of their charters at the end of the year, or maybe sell 1 of their charters and maybe give it to a team like RFK perhaps. RFK does want to expand into the future, so maybe Stewart-Haas Racing makes a decision where they do go ahead and end up selling a charter going into next season. But I do think Aric Almirola is more than likely going to retire at the end of this year, and I'm going to say I think it's going to be Cole Custer who gets the ride. But again, going back to Ford, They do have Ty Majeski in there. They have Ben Rose in their program. But again, I don't think Ty Majeski's the development driver. He's almost 30 years old. Keep that in mind. And then also they have Josh Berry coming over. But man, I don't know if Josh Berry is going to set the world on fire next year, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens in regards to what it goes on with Stewart-Haas Racing. But I personally think SHR is in a lot of trouble. And it's kind of their fault that they are in trouble currently at the moment. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Matt DiBenedetto. Now, remember earlier in the year, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Matt DiBenedetto had announced that he would be leaving Rackley World Racing at the end of 2023 and sent out a really nice thankful tweet thanking Rackley for everything they have done. Well, Rackley World Racing, after not making it to the next round of the playoffs and going to next week, a couple weeks from now, which is Talladega Superspeedway, they have made an executive decision to go ahead and get rid of Matt DiBenedetto 3 races early. And Matt DiBenedetto then released his statement early, and they said that he is disappointed and extremely disappointed by the decision they've made. He thanked Craftsman and NASCAR for letting him run in the Truck Series, and he'll give updates on his future for 2024. Now, obviously, I'm going to say this. Now, look, every team can make whatever decision they want to make. It's the team's decision. If they want to get rid of Matt DiBenedetto, they absolutely can. It's their decision. However, I feel like this is a very scummy and a really, really bad move on Rackley World Racing part. And I'm going to explain why. Yes, like I mentioned, Matt DiBenedetto was going to be leaving the team regardless at the end of the 2023 season. But you could have let him finish the rest of the year. Matt DiBenedetto has been your best driver for your team. He got your first win at Talladega nonetheless, which the next race for the Truck Series is at Talladega, which is next week. You could at least let him run Talladega and maybe gotten rid of him for the last 2 races, but you could at least let him finish the year. Matt DiBenedetto has been very good with Rackley this year in 2023. He has scored 2 top 5s, 12 top 10s, which, by the way, the only 2 drivers that have more top 10s are Ty Majeski and Corey Heim. Ty Majeski has 13, Corey Heim has 17. Outside of that, DiBenedetto's tied with a couple other drivers. He's got more top 10s than Zane Smith, who, by the way, is going Cup racing in 2024. So you got drivers who are moving up next year. He's got more top 10s than Nick Sanchez, who moved on to the next round. And I think DiBenedetto's been very, very good this year with Rackley. And he barely almost got to the round of 8. 2 years ago, Rackley World Racing was struggling to finish races and run well. They got better at the end of 2021 with Josh Berry, I'll give you that. But DiBenedetto has been having a very good year with Rackley. So I think that this is a bad move on Rackley World Racing part. Like I said, we all knew that Matt DiBenedetto was going to be leaving the team. But again, Matt DiBenedetto's also had a little bit of history of being let go from teams in the past. He had a bad breakup with Wood Brothers, obviously. He thought he'd be returning to their team or staying in the Penske program. He got let go from that team a few years ago. Then he had other teams like Avine Family Racing where he got in the Go Fast Racing and such. But this time around, Matt DiBenedetto didn't do anything wrong. Yes, he wanted to bet on himself once again to go and race for a team, but he could have at least been let to finish the year. Now, a couple questions that need to be asked. Number 1, who gets in that 25 truck? Well, Noah Grayson's been rumored. Noah Grayson is back in the NASCAR series at the moment. He's been running in the Penny Series recently. Noah Grayson, I think, has a chance of possibility to go to that 25 truck, maybe for the final few weeks, and maybe he could go there in 2024, which I don't think that'd be an upgrade, but it wouldn't be a complete downgrade by any stretch of imagination. No, I don't think Noah Grayson is going to set the world on fire with Rackley next year. And then also you've got Dawson Sutton, who is son of Curtis Sutton. But Dawson Sutton is only 18. And if you think an 18-year-old is going to put up the same stats as Matt DiBenedetto, I'm sorry, I don't think Dawson is going to put up the same performance. I just don't like this move from Rackley. They should have let him finish the year. I think it's a bad move. I know people have their opinions on Matt DiBenedetto. He probably shouldn't have announced early, but still, he should have been allowed to finish the season with the team. Now, the big question is what happens to Matt DiBenedetto's future? Where does he end up? Well, I think there are some rides that are potentially available. You've got Colleague Racing. That 16 car is currently available in the NASCAR Cup Series currently at the moment, and I think he would be a very good driver for that 16 car. There's other drivers in the runnings like Ty Dillon perhaps, but he could go to the 16 Cup car in 2024. But also, they do have their Xfinity Series team that is available that could be open up for 2024 as well. They have a couple rides that could be available. We know that Daniel Hemrick, of course, is moving back up to the Cup Series in the 31 car next year, though it's been rumored Allmendinger may move down to Xfinity. There's certainly a chance he go to one of their Xfinity cars in 2024, which I think would be a good decision. There's also been people bringing up the A car for Junior Motorsports, but a lot of people believe that Sammy Smith is the most likely to end up in the A car for Junior Motorsports in the 2024 year. But I would imagine that Matt DiBenedetto would do a pretty good job in the A car and would be a championship threat and a contender. You've also got some NASCAR truck rides that could be available. Nice Motorsports, the team I'll mention, they do have that 42 truck that's more than likely going to be available. Remember, Carson Nosvar is rumored right now to be headed to Cup Racing in 2024 with Spire Motorsports in the 77 team. So I think there's a certain chance and possibility that we could see Matt DiBenedetto go to that 42 truck next year as a championship caliber ride, and Matt DiBenedetto will probably do really good in the 42 team and probably win some races as well. I've seen someone bring up KBM. Kyle Busch Motorsports still doesn't have any races for the 51 assigned outside of Kyle Busch. He'll only run 5 races next year in 2024. And Jack Wood is not confirmed to be returning to the team at this point. So maybe he goes to KBM. Maybe goes to a team like Spire Motorsports in the Truck Series. That certainly is possible. Maybe he goes to Front Row Motorsports. 38 trucks going to be available next year. They're going to be returning, so maybe Matt DiBenedetto goes there. But again, I do feel for Matt DiBenedetto. I know he's had a lot of historical, not had a great end up in breakups with these teams in the past, but still, I think it's a bad move on the team's part, and he should have been allowed to finish the year with the team. So I don't know where Matt DiBenedetto goes at this point for his future, but I really hope Matt DiBenedetto does find a ride for 2024, which I think certainly a team is going to pick Matt DiBenedetto up in 2024. But like I said, I'm very disappointed that Matt DiBenedetto is not going to get to finish the year. He should have been allowed to finish the year. I think if I was a team, I understand that he was announcing early he'd be leaving, but still, I would have let him finish the year with the team. But that is just my honest opinion on that. I would have let Matt DiBenedetto finish the season with the organization. So, that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links description below that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Where do you think Matt DiBenedetto ends up in 2024? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what do you think goes on with the 2024 schedule? What do you think is going to get released? And who drives the 10 car if Aric Almirola retires? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we'll have the NASCAR Xfinity Series Race 2 from Texas Motor Speedway. And then, of course, on Sunday, we'll have the NASCAR Cup Series Race 2 from Texas as well. Then on Monday, we should have a NASCAR news video as we get you guys set up for Talladega, which that's going to be a really exciting race. Cannot wait for that. Let's just get through Texas week. Got a lot of great content dropping that I can't wait for you guys to check out. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.